Europe's global influence has shaped much of the modern world, from culture to economics. Yet, as we head deeper into the 21st century, Europe finds itself in an increasingly precarious position, struggling to keep pace with the United States and China. What's causing this economic and technological gap? And what does it mean for the future of the European Union? Let's dive in. For decades, Europe has been synonymous with stability, innovation, and a high quality of life. Its social safety nets, advanced infrastructure, and robust demographic institutions have set global standards. But recent years reveal a troubling reality. Europe is losing ground in its critical areas of competitiveness. Former European Central Bank President Mario Draghi has emphasized that Europe's productivity growth is staggering. Without a concerted effort to address this, the EU risks falling into what he called a prolonged period of irrelevance. One of the clearest signs of this decline is in the tech sector. While Silicon Valley and Chinese cities like Shenzhen dominate the global stage, Europe has struggled to produce tech giants of similar scale. Germany's top diplomat recently warned that Europe's tech lag is the single biggest long-term threat to its security and economic resilience. For instance, consider the field of artificial intelligence, AI. While the US has invested billions into AI development and China continues to leverage state-driven programs, Europe's cautious regulatory approach has slowed down progress. The European Union's AI Act, while focused on ethical concerns, has created barriers for startups and businesses, preventing them from scaling quickly. And this isn't just about AI. Europe's broader digital infrastructure lags behind. Internet speeds, tech funding, and the availability of venture capital cash in Europe pale in comparison to the United States and China. For example, in 2023, European startups raised about $50 billion, significantly less than their American counterparts, which raised over $200 billion. This funding gap means fewer innovations are coming out of Europe, and even when they do, many European startups just relocate to the US for better opportunities and better labor. The loss of entrepreneurial talent and ideas to the United States and other regions is an often overlooked aspect of the EU's struggles. The economic impact of this lag is staggering. As one analyst put it, had the European economy grown at the same pace as the US economy over the past few decades, it would be generating 3 trillion euros of extra income every year. This is roughly the equivalent to the gross domestic product of France. This figure encapsulates the scale of the challenge facing Europe. It's not just about falling behind, it's about missing out on wealth opportunities and prosperity that could have been created. Energy is another area where Europe is falling behind. The EU has long been a leader in renewable energy policy, but high energy costs and geopolitical instability have slowed progress. According to Rystad Energy, Europe's advancements in wind, solar, and hydrogen and nuclear have been outpaced by countries like China and the United States. Germany, once the powerhouse of Europe's economy, has been particularly affected. Its reliance on imported energy, especially natural gas from Russia, has made its industries less competitive globally. The energy crisis underscores Europe's vulnerability to external shocks. Take the Russian invasion of Ukraine as an example. This geopolitical event exposed Europe's heavy dependence on Russian gas, leading to soaring energy prices and supply chain disruptions. Meanwhile, the US and China, though affected, were better equipped to handle the fallout due to diversified energy sources and more resilient supply chains. Europe's reliance on energy imports doesn't just impact its economy, it also limits its geopolitical leverage in critical regions. Demographics are another key factor. Europe's population is aging rapidly, with birth rates too low to sustain economic growth in the long term. The labor shortages that come with an aging workforce are beginning to affect industries ranging from healthcare to manufacturing. The US, in contrast, has managed to mitigate similar challenges through immigration policies and investment in automation. China, despite facing its own demographic crisis, has maintained growth through aggressive state-driven investments in technology and infrastructure. Europe, however, has struggled to adopt similar strategies. This demographic challenge is particularly acute in the southern Europe, where the youth unemployment remains stubbornly high, creating a lost generation of workers. Fiscal policy is another area where Europe is losing its edge. The US has embraced bold spending programs to drive innovation and economic growth, such as the Inflation Reduction Act, which is actually just the Green New Deal, which pours billions into renewable energy and technologies. Europe, by contrast, remains mired in debates over the austerity versus investment. Mario Draghi called for an €800 billion package to revitalize the EU's economy, but political divisions within the bloc make such an ambitious plan difficult to implement. Even when the consensus is reached, implementation is often slow, diluting the potential impact of large-scale projects. Compounding these issues is Europe's fragmented decision-making process. Unlike in the US or China, where decisions can often be made swiftly, at a national level, the EU must navigate the complexities of consensus among its 27 member states. This can lead to delays in implementation for crucial reforms. For example, when the US quickly rolled out stimulus packages during the coronavirus, the EU took months to agree on a collective recovery plan. These delays undermine Europe's ability to respond effectively to crises and proactively shape its future. Despite these challenges, Europe still has a significant strength. It remains a global leader in areas like healthcare and education and sustainability. The European Green Deal, for example, aims to make the EU the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. However, achieving this ambition requires overcoming substantial hurdles, such as securing funding and achieving buy-in from all member states. The Green Deal represents both an opportunity and a test. It could either reinvigorate Europe's economy or highlight its internal divisions if implementation falters. Not to mention other geographical challenges, like the fact that Europe doesn't really receive that much sunlight, so solar's not super effective there versus somewhere like Texas, which is basically a desert in most of it. And Germany has reverted to using brown coal, the dirtiest coal. So if anything, right now they're heading backwards in the transition to green energy. Christine Lagarde, the current president of the European Central Bank, has called for greater unity and investment to tackle these challenges. She emphasizes that Europe needs to focus on fostering innovation while maintaining its ethical standards. This means rethinking its approach to regulation and creating an environment where businesses can thrive without compromising on values. For instance, a balanced AI policy could enable European companies to innovate while still adhering to ethical guidelines, setting a global standard for responsible technology. Energy independence will also be crucial. To reduce its reliance on imported energy, Europe needs to accelerate investments in renewables and diversify its energy sources. The recent energy crisis has underscored the urgency of this issue, showing how vulnerable the EU is to external shocks. A unified energy policy could stabilize prices and make European industries more competitive globally. This would also position Europe as a leader in the global energy transition, which is increasingly critical for long-term economic and geopolitical influence in this modern culture. Lastly, Europe must address its demographic challenges by investing in education, workforce training, and policies that attract skilled immigrants. They could also work towards driving down the costs of home ownership, food, and raising children so that more people can have kids of their own and start repopulating naturally. These steps would ensure a steady supply of talent to drive innovation and economic growth. Some experts suggest that Europe could benefit from policies similar to Canada's point-based immigration system, which attracts skilled-based workers while adhering to labor shortages. Whether such reforms can gain any traction in the EU politically diverse landscape remains an open-ended question. Also, Canada's having a lot of struggles with their immigration system right now. If Europe fails to act, it risks becoming a bystander in a world increasingly shaped by American and Chinese priorities. But with the right reforms and investments, the EU has the potential to go near their position as the global leader again, although I don't think they'll ever catch back up. The question is whether it can rise to the challenge in time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Can Europe close the gap, or is it destined to just keep falling further and further behind? And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.